Welcome to Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. And today we had a day-long meeting with our newly inaugurated Workforce Committee, kind of the steering committee, looking at all of the objectives of the committee and what we hope to accomplish with it. And I'm very pleased to be joined by two of the committee's co-chairs. We have with us today, we have Orhan Ulger with 2IM Group, and also joined by Susan Osterberg with SSR. And thank you for joining the program. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you. We're glad to be here.
So you guys had a pretty intensive day looking at all the objectives that you're looking to accomplish with the Workforce Committee. Let me kick it off first. Susan, why is it so important that we even have this committee to begin with?
Yeah. So really excited about the opportunity for us to impact the industry overall. As we all know that, we struggle and fight for talent every day. And so it's not just about trading talent in the industry. It's about how do we generate more interest in the industry? How do we get more people into the engineering field? And I think most importantly, understand how incredibly purposeful that the work is that we do.
Yeah, that's always the challenge, the essentiality of the work and trying to get noticed for the work that we're doing. Orhan, what do you think?
Well, industry has been suffering for quite a while. We're not getting many engineers towards the pipeline. So when we started talking together, Rodney, Susan, and I, we separated the problem into three areas. First one is how can we maintain what we have in our industry? So Susan is kind of in charge of that, and which is very important. We're looking into different people. I mean, the engineers, the new staff, the new engineers are different than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So we need to kind of adjust for that. And the other two, areas were long-term solutions to the workforce problems and the short-term solutions, and just to fill up the gap. That's the whole purpose.
We're so focused on advocacy and legislative relief, and that's of course a part of this. But outside of that, you also have, to your point, technology, kind of changing the nature of the industry, and also just the explosion of different areas in the economy that draw potential talent away from consulting engineering, in the tech field or Silicon Valley. How are you hoping to kind of structure the committee's work to address, things that usually ACEC hasn't really been focused on before? We're always talking about the business of engineering at the firm level, generally the executive level, and how to manage business. Now we're looking at trying to talk to people who aren't even engineers yet, right? We're trying to get them when we can, as early as humanly possible. What do you think about ACEC kind of stepping into this area? Susan?
Yeah, I think it's critical.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the more we can potentially influence young minds for opening their minds up and, even at a very elementary level, understanding what it is that the engineering, field does. And, I can take my own firm and think about even broadly that, we're helping to provide clean water, and we're helping to build buildings that are interesting and, entertaining to bring your family and friends to, and we're building roads, and, just how critical the industry is and what engineers do. So really sparking that interest and knowing that you can have a great career in engineering.
Yeah. And change the world. I mean, it's
absolutely
right. We always hear about the new generation of students and professionals who want more out of a position or a job than just a paycheck. They want to actually have an impact. What's your take on that, Orhan, about how that could be good for the industry?
Yeah. During our meeting today, one of the slides, they were talking about if you're good at math, become an engineer.
Yeah.
And it was scratched, and it was saying if you want to change the world, be an engineer. That is true. We change the world, like Susan said. Environmental, roadway, everything. When you think about your surrounding, everything has engineering touch to it. Your buildings, roadways, etc. And So you mentioned technology. One area that we don't tell our story well enough is in our engineering area, we use a lot of technology. We use a lot of computer programming. We use a lot of computer science. We need to tell our story to those students who are interested in computer science, etc. Hey, you know what? You can do even more if you come to our industry.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it's the diversification of the industry, right? Technology poses a great opportunity. It's going to maybe change the structure or makeup of the engineering firm, but it's not going to lessen the need for professionals. How do you think technology is going to change the face of the engineering firm? You mentioned, 19 years ago, the firm looked completely different in this short amount of time. I mean, AI has just exploded over the past year. How do you think that's going to drive evolution? So,
I think it's absolutely going to evolve the types of roles and positions that we have in our companies. I don't think we yet understand that, but I know there's a lot of effort going into many firms trying to understand how will design look differently, what components of design will be done not necessarily by a human, but by a computer, and yet that doesn't replace ultimately what an engineer has to do. And so I think it's going to be a lot of learning over the next few years.
yeah. But at the same time, it might change the face of the engineering firm, but you're always going to need a licensed professional engineer who can sign a design, whatever form that design is going to take over time. But that person who actually assumes the responsibility. How does licensure play into this, Orhan? In your mind, what is the workforce committee's role in protecting the value and the necessity of being a licensed engineer and what that means to society?
Well, think about medical profession, right? When you graduate from medical school, you specialize in one area. Let's say you become a brain surgeon, or you become an ear and throat doctor, or you become pediatrician. Each and every one has to be licensed separately in different areas. So engineering is the same way. An engineer, if you're a structural engineer, you have to be specialized and licensed in that area, right? If you're a transportation engineer, civil engineer, you do the same. So you become an expert in your field. And that expertise is what we need. We cannot not have that expertise. And that expertise has to be regulated. And we have to have that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if we don't have that, there are decisions that are being made that really are, I hate to call it life and death.
Well, they are. I mean,
that's how critical that expertise is.
How many people travel a bridge on a daily basis?
Exactly.
How many people?
Buildings. Buildings.
Yeah.
How many people occupy those buildings? If something happens to that building, a doctor can kill one person.
Yeah.
So that's how critical it is.
Yeah, exactly. And that's going to be an interesting thing because there's that push in some areas of the country to kind of weaken that, but that's something that we need to stand up for. Because,
Absolutely.
it's life and death, and it's also the social impact that our work has, right? So much of the time, the work of an engineer goes unseen until something happens. Well, God forbid something happens, or if there's an improvement over something that is like, we're replacing a bridge with this new one, and you kind of realize, oh my God, look at how much better this is. So that's going to be something that's going to be definitely a focus, of course, on advocacy coming into the spring convention. Workforce Summit. This is something new, something that's in development right now. We're looking towards April to kind of achieve this kind of first of its kind engineering Workforce Summit. What are you hoping to get out of that? Honestly, because it's, we haven't done it before.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Obviously, what we spent a good part of our day talking about our thoughts, but even the summit in general. And, for me, what I've taken away and excited about is the opportunity to have so many other organizations involved and learn from their perspective what challenges they're having. And then hopefully we find commonality amongst us and collaboration and potentially some great partnerships that can come out that we can impact the industry together, not just individually as organizations.
Absolutely. Ron?
Well, I think when we put our minds together, we will solve the problem.
Yeah.
And with this, we will hear other organizations' problems on the same subject from their perspective. And I think it's going to educate us greatly, and we
Yeah.
will be able to approach it much better.
Everybody seems to be doing their own thing in their own way
Correct.
to their own audience, right? But the one thing that the lawyers are really good at and the doctors are really good at is bringing everything under one banner, right? And that hopefully we can move towards that so engineers can be speaking with a singular voice on these issues.
I also think it will provide us with more clarity because we're just at the very beginnings of this. It'll provide more clarity for us in terms of just the efforts within ACEC and member organizations. And, I think it'll be a great opportunity both to partner and to work, internally.
Well, it's great to have you both in the office to talk about this. It's a great start to this. I think there's a lot of energy right now around workforce. We have a lot of other issues on the table, tax and regulatory policy, but workforce is always at the top, and having a committee now established to focus specifically on these issues and to really spend time to not just have tunnel vision, but look at it holistically is going to be critically important. So I would imagine, it's an open committee. I know that it's just starting up, so that, you're planning some activities in the spring convention as well. So I guess we'll have one of your first inaugural meetings in the spring, correct?
Yes.
Great. And that's a not so subtle plug that registration's open for the spring convention in May. So make sure to go up to the website and register for that so that you can take advantage of the programming, and then also to see what the workforce committee is up to, because it's going to be a busy year.
Absolutely.
Orhan, Susan, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to having you back on once we get really going and we get closer to that workforce summit. That was a little bit of a tease. Haven't really mentioned that before, so more information on that will be coming very, very soon. But thank you very much for being part of the program.
Thank
you.
And again, this has been Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. We'll see you next time.